Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Before we start this podcast, let's begin with an imagination. Imagine a story. Say your manager informed you that they would need your assistance in training a new hire from Thailand. That is in 2 weeks. So what sprang to your mind when you learned the native location of the new hire? Did you form any opinions about the person based only on their country of origin? The answer is definitely an yes, which is very common, and this is how our brain works. To process all the information that we encounter daily, our brain creates some shortcuts which are known as stereotypes. And workplace stereotyping is something that needs to be figured out no matter what. Hello listeners, welcome back to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. I am Sushmita, your host, and to discuss workplace stereotypes, please join me in welcoming Nandita Krishan, the General Manager at Marching Ship. She is also a podcaster, author, speaker, and a diversity and inclusion expert. Hi Nandita, welcome to the show.
Hi Sushmita, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here today with us, Nandita. So please, would you like to tell us about yourself, your professional background, and your current job role?
Absolutely. And let me start with saying that it is a pleasure to be on this show and share my experience with all the listeners.
Thank you, Nandita.
So I'm an HR professional with over a decade of experience in various roles and functions of HR. So far, I have donned the hats of a facilitator, a recruiter, generalist, employee engagement specialist, and a DEI expert.
Amazing.
I'm also an NLP practitioner, which is neuro-linguistic programming and rests on the premise that whatever we think, whatever we say, and the way we act are all interconnected. So basically, if we can control the brain or our thoughts to be more precise, right? We can be the change that we want to see.
Right.
In my current role with Marching Sheep, I manage a diverse portfolio, which lets me bring forth my innovative and passionate side as an HR professional. Marching Sheep is one of the top HR consulting firms, not only in India, but across the globe. So we work across 80 countries and act as trusted advisors rather than external consultants for organizations in the diversity and inclusion domain and leadership development. My role specifically includes client engagement, facilitation, research, OD consulting, and a lot more. We are a lean and diverse team, and we curate contextualized content and solutions for our clients rather than offering packaged products and trainings.
Okay, got it.
So, I started working with Marching Sheep during COVID. I call myself the proud COVID baby of the organization. And today, I independently conduct awareness and sensitization sessions on DEI and its various dimensions, along with leadership development programs and consulting. So it's been a tremendous journey for me so far at Marching Sheep. There is honestly no limit to learning and growth here. And that is something that keeps me roaring.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Nandita. So today we'll be talking about workplace stereotypes, and I thank you seriously that you actually agreed to discussing this very serious and very critical topic that has not been much discussed over the internet. So while talking about stereotypes, any kind of assumption that comes from a stereotype and is left unchecked can slow down and stop your company's growth, isn't it, Nandita? So let's begin with the meaning today before we go deeper. What exactly is workplace stereotyping and where does it come from?
Sure. So, to simplify it for everybody to understand, simply put, stereotypes are assumptions which we make against or in favor of a certain type of people or group. Now, when these assumptions start affecting our workplace decisions and way of working, they become workplace stereotypes.
Right.
These assumptions can be in any form: culture, race, background, male, female, any disability, sexual orientation and preference. I mean, just about anything. Sushmita, once I was conducting a session for this big global company and for their Latin America region. And during a reflection activity, one of the participants shared with me that he thinks people who have struggled in life are more deserving of a job.
Okay.
Which is why he ends up hiring people who come from that background. Imagine that. So there is no fixed number of workplace stereotypes that exist today, right? But are we born with these assumptions about people? No, we are not. These stereotypes stem from the cues which we pick up as we grow.
Right.
So when we see our mothers cooking in the kitchen and serving us and everybody at home their favorite meal, we automatically assume that this is their primary role.
It's only her duty. Yeah.
Yes. It's what we call the women are the primary caregivers. Take care of everybody and everything. As a result, traditionally, we do not resonate with men cooking food.
Exactly.
And when we draw a parallel of this to the workplace, birthday occasions and cake cutting are considered a woman colleague's responsibility.
Right.
This is how workplace stereotypes manifest themselves.
Yeah. That is like to process all that we see, all that we encounter on a daily basis. Our brain creates some shortcuts, isn't it? And those are stereotypes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, we all talk about working women, working mothers, but how many of us use terms like working man or working father? Right? We rarely do. And what is most ironical is that, Sushmita, as we evolve, as workplace situations evolve, our stereotypes also evolve. Because we're constantly picking up cues.
Yeah.
Our experiences are constantly giving us some assumptions, some judgment. And this forms a vicious circle leading to exclusion and unhappy employees. So stereotypes will always exist at every age, wherever we are. I would like to say stereotypes are a reality of our life based on our assumptions.
Right. And when we say where does it come from, I think it comes from home.
Absolutely. Not just home. I think I would broaden that a little, Sushmita, and say it is social conditioning.
Yeah.
Home, school, college, all the movies we see where for a very long period of time, heroines and female actors were not given their due credit.
Right, right.
All they had to do was dance around trees, sing songs and say, bachao. So, for a very long period of time, it's only now with the likes of Kareena Kapoor and Kanna Ranaut and, Katrina Kaif and all these wonderful women that we are seeing women being the lead in Indian movies also.
Yeah.
So it's all social conditioning.
So when it comes to workplace, Nandita, what are the different forms and repercussions that you believe is?
So what we pick up as social conditioning become our forms at the workplace. So for example, saying that just because this person is disabled, this person would need a special attention at the workplace. Or saying that there are so many gender stereotypes which happen.
Yeah.
Saying that women cannot be successful in a sales function because it would require them to travel more. It would require them to go in areas where they might not be safe, work late, right? These are a few stereotypes at the workplace that we see very commonly, or what we talk about ageism today. And what we don't understand is that workplace stereotypes have a very deep impact on the organizations. It is not just about employees from different life stages and diverse groups who feel left out, right? But eventually, these employees are working for your organization. So it will have a boiled down effect where it impacts your business revenues, your productivity at work, attrition, and have a bigger impact on the overall employer brand. And I think companies today understand this, which is why most organizations are working towards sensitizing their employees, managers, leaders, and creating an inclusive environment where every employee feels valued. They feel that my organization takes care of me.
Right.
A lot of employees today want to work with organizations which are purpose-driven, which resonate with their personal purpose, intentions, social impacts. And that is what organizations need to be more aware of.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Yeah, as you mentioned, the traditional gender prejudices, if we talk about just that, it exists almost like every organization. Mostly in India, maybe we're more prone to take a traditional view of gender roles. As you mentioned already, that even though a woman is working, she is responsible for taking care of the family and do household works as well. And men are supposed to be working only outside of the home to earn for the family, isn't it? So this whole notion definitely has an impact when both men and women work in an organization under the same roof. So let's take a quick look at this. And as every culture, country, and now society is developing over time, how do both men and women in the workplace are becoming change agents?
Sure, absolutely. So I would want to give a little twist to this, Sushmita.
Sure.
And say that what I have seen in my experience today, gender stereotypes and gender prejudices are no longer limited to women. I think men face equal prejudice and bias at the workplace. A stark example of this is that while a lot of companies over the past couple of years introduced paternity leaves for male employees, they are hardly hailed because of the social conditioning where men fear that if they take paternity leave, they will be judged and laughed upon by their peers and colleagues. Just like women returning from maternity are judged as not prioritizing career anymore. Yeah. Men are also judged for availing paternity leaves. And this is just one example of the many prejudices which are gender stereotyped in the workplace. Another example I'll give you is that while it is okay for women to take a career break or a sabbatical, they're expected to, right? And at different life stages, we expect women to take a career break, and it is absolutely normal. It is still a big stigma for men to take a sabbatical. Or the fact that in many organizations, there are women themselves who act as a barrier for other women employees' growth.
Very true.
Right?
This happens more actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I call it the, if I did it the hard way, so should you syndrome.
Yeah.
Which often makes women in the mid-management level quit. Yeah. So it is not just men who need to be the change agents, but even women who need to play their part as change agents. While the organizations introduce progressive policies, employees need to be open and accepting of them. One very important thing which I often talk about and would love to spread the word on is that we need to understand that our employees are a part of the society. They come from the society itself, and after work, they go back in the same space. So if we're talking about social conditioning, stereotypes, assumptions, to bring a change at the societal level and address these stereotypes, we need to start with sensitizing and improving our workplace. And a big shout out to organizations who are already working on this. They're walking the talk. But unfortunately, it is still a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely. And empathy has also a role to play it in, right? And empathy can reduce stereotypical attitudes as it encourages people to share a sense of common identity with others in the same way. And accountability as well helps us to know what is expected from us individually. So what are your views in balancing accountability and empathy when dealing with sensitive workplace issues?
I totally agree, and I totally support that empathy plays a very big role in creating a safe space for your employees to work, a more productive space for your employees to work in and grow. During COVID, a lot of evolving employee needs came up, and empathy was the biggest among them, where they wanted their managers, leaders, team members, employers to understand the whole mental trauma that everybody was going through during lockdown, the mental health issues, and hence deal with them more empathetically, more from a humane point of view, with a human touch, right? But I think it is also important to understand and address that empathy is not entitlement. While it is okay to expect that your manager, leader, team member, employer should be empathetic towards your needs and your evolving life stages, but empathy is not like a metro rail compartment or a reserved seat, which gives the employee the right to not perform and simply be saying, I am going through mental trauma.
Yeah, that's true.
I understand you're going through it. I am giving you support. So many companies introduced mental health leaves, but being sensitive to workplace issues or building inclusive workplace does not come at the cost of accountability, right? At the end of the day, every employee should be able to prove their worth and the value which they bring to the table in the organization. The whole meritocracy dialogue, right? Which is why it is extremely important to balance these two.
Yeah, it should exist together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not to say that you should only hold employees accountable and say, so what if the world fell apart? You did not do your target, your numbers, your KRAs. You need to balance both and say, yes, this happened because of which these were the constraints. But does that take away the fact that you could have done this in another way also, or you could have done something else which created value to your whole portfolio?
Right.
It is not.
So age diversity also, can increase organizational performance and minimize turnover. Very few firms use it in their diversity and inclusion plans too. So wouldn't you agree that the time has come to see aging as a positive, as a period of opportunity and to see older people and older workers as contributors to society?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Sushmita. Many organizations today have born out of ancestral businesses. And therefore, they can only survive on the goodwill and expertise of the older generation.
True.
Also, a lot of our senior management people who we often call baby boomers.
Yeah.
So for the benefit of our listeners, baby boomers are people who are born between 1946 and 1964. They are the oldest contributors, the oldest generation in the workforce today. And these people bring with them the experience, knowledge, market know-how, real life experience, I would want to say, because they have seen the ups and downs through the great resignations, through the COVIDs of the world, through the wars, every economic slump.
Yeah.
And yet saying that, you are an old person, you're the oldest person in our organization, or referring to older people as out of touch, digitally handicapped.
Yes. Especially when it comes about technology, they're often looked down upon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or, some of them use the terms like slow or stuck in their ways, too rigid to work
Very
with.
wrong.
This is all nothing but ageism, right? Now, when we talk about this generation, baby boomers, the huge gap is what we need to look at between 1946 and 1964, right? We're talking about what? 18 years, almost 2 decades. How is it fair to bucketize and judge everybody in a big gap of 18 to 20 years as same? How can we say that a person who was born in 1946 is as old as a person who was born in 1964? And that is why these are the broad synonyms which we will use for all the work they're doing. And we assume this is how they will behave or, act or do things. We cannot label them as same. We need to give credit to every year of this generation for the experience.
And I see that most of them are also eager to learn. And that's why I think organizations fail to make them learn. I think, like it's high time, like as organizations, as employers, as managers, we take the responsibility to make them up to the mark. Whatever we expect from them. Yeah.
Absolutely, Sushmita. And, ageism, similarly, also, so there are two extremes to this. One is for the older people that we're talking about. Another extreme is for the younger people. The Gen Z or the Zillennials, as we call them, which got added to the workforce during work from home phase. So when offices reopened, there seemed to be a whole new dimension of diversity, which we call the multi-generational workforce, which we are dealing with.
Yeah.
Now, the younger people face age discrimination in the name of less experienced, irresponsible, untrustworthy, inko to kuch aata hi nahi hai, entitled, right? So what we need to understand is that every individual, whether they are baby boomers, X, Y, Z, whatever part of the generation,
they are stereotyped based, depending on their convenience.
Absolutely. Instead of looking at them as a treasure trove of knowledge, skills, competencies, experience, and leveraging that, we are simply labeling them basis the generation they belong to.
Yeah.
So organizations need to be mindful of this. A lot of them have introduced reverse mentoring, where the new younger people are mentoring the older people and helping them adjust to the technological advancement.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there is your normal mentoring process where the older people are, mentoring the younger lot, which is getting added to the workforce. So it is always a give and take that we're talking about here if you need to address these stereotypes.
Yeah. So what would be your final tips, Nandita, for the employers and managers who are listening to us, what they can do to decrease and eradicate stereotyping in the workplace? They're not just talking about age diversity.
So first and foremost, Sushmita, I don't think you can eradicate stereotyping. You can only be aware of it and address it through awareness. Like I said, it is a vicious circle. We are constantly picking up cues. So we will constantly keep stereotyping as long as we are self-aware. So increase self-awareness among employees about their own stereotypes. Every employee should be encouraged to pause, reflect, take a moment to question their preconceived notions, especially for important decisions like creating a project team, recruitment, performance pay, promotions. We are all biased and victims of social conditioning.
Right.
But when we get a better understanding of our thought processes and conditioning, we will be better positioned to challenge our assumptions, right? Yeah. Secondly, we should encourage open communication among employees across geographies, functions, levels, departments. Let there be a free flow of communication. The more they interact, the more chances of them getting over their biases and stereotypes. So communication, I believe, gives rest to curiosity. And once a curious mind gets its answer, it stops assuming. Right? And most importantly and lastly, building an inclusive, bias-free workplace is a continuous process. Just like Rome was not built in a day and we left it at it and said, oh, this is Rome. Inclusion does not happen overnight. And we need to constantly, at regular intervals, keep reminding our employees to be conscious.
The continuous practice.
Absolutely. So regular sensitization sessions, talks by experts, exposure to diverse perspectives, all of this always helps at a constant, regular intervals and checks.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Really love this conversation today, Nandita. And I'm sure that our audience will enjoy this conversation as well. So, they might want to reach out to you. So would you like to tell us about your address or your LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely. So I am a little allergic to social media. I find it a little fake. So I am not to be found on Facebook or Twitter. Extremely sorry for that. But I'm reachable on LinkedIn as Nandita Krishan. Or you can find me on the Marching Sheep website, www.marchingsheep.com.
Brilliant, Nandita. I'll be sharing the LinkedIn link in the show notes of this episode. So I really appreciate your time today and want to thank you for the wonderful points that you made, and thank you for sharing your expertise. And we can't wait till next time you join us.
Great. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation, Sushmita. And I would only want to end with one last line from me.
Sure.
In my experience, and trust me, I learn and grow every day through my interactions with people across geographies. If there is something that has stuck and with me and has stayed with me, is the thought that the only thing constant in life is change. And grass is always greener where you water it. It is not greener on the other side. It's an excuse. It's a myth. It is greener where you water it. So as individuals, we need to water our thoughts, our behaviors, and those of our children to continue to grow. And we need to constantly evolve to keep up with the change and adapt to the new and unique ways of life and business. That is how we address our own assumptions.
Brilliant. Absolutely true, Nandita. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you, Sushmita. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.